Welcome to episode 1 of the Truck Around and Find Out podcast. I'm your one of your co-hosts, Ryan Byers, and joining with me today we've got Keith Couch. Keith, how are you doing this morning?
Doing good.
Good. You know, Keith and I decided to start this podcast, I think, back in March, and we've been talking about it ever since. Been a little bit slow to get on it, but, once we finally figured out the direction, how we're going to go with this, well, I think we decided to really move forward. So we're bringing you episode 1 right now. Keith and I are really two like-minded individuals. You know, when we're starting this podcast, we can come together and focus on our personal interests, our adventures, our businesses, trucking, transportation, safety, while having fun with these topics. Yeah, we hope to create an audience and that you'll enjoy our topics and our discussions. As we grow this podcast, we're going to introduce some different hot button issues and in this transportation industry, but it's not going to all be about transportation. Like I said, we're going to try to bring a lot of transportation, but we want to have fun with this. So we're going to bring in a lot of things about our lives, our passions, and our experience, and that type of thing. So, with that, let's kind of talk about us for just a minute, Keith. Since we're not going to really get into that every episode on episode 1, it's kind of our time to let the audience know who we are. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Keith.
Keith Couch, and I grew up. Was born in Minnesota, moved to Montana, and then grew up in western Nebraska. Went to college, down in southeast Nebraska on a football scholarship. Came out of there, wound up in Colorado with a business. Didn't like it at all. Cleaning carpets was really boring. Wound up at Merritt Trailers and then moved to Montana, sold trucks. Company's no longer there, but it was Treasure State Sales. Then turned to Zomer Truck Company. We did new and used trailers and used trucks. And then moved to Colorado, got married, moved to Colorado, Maxi Truck Equipment, Wild County Garage, short stint with John Deere, and then I've been at Rush Peterbilt now for coming up on 12 years. So that doesn't seem possible. So it's been great to have a OEM brand like Peterbilt to sell. Because one thing that's kind of interesting, I didn't even put this down in my notes, but my mom showed me a scrapbook when I was a kid. And all the trucks I laid on the floor and drew were all Peterbilts.
Well, it is a classic look.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't beat that look to that Peterbilt.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Kenworth guys are out there saying, they'd argue with us. But hey, that
truck
Pete
too.
has just a crisp, clean look to it.
Yeah.
Always
Nothing wrong with the Kenworth. Good looking truck too. But and they've all made some good trucks. But when I was in Montana, I got married to Kelly. Totally outkicked my coverage there. So that's just kind of a quick and dirty background on me. And we met how many years ago?
Well, it was just before you went to Rush. So yeah, it was
12,
you were doing
13 years ago.
Yeah, you were doing some stuff with equipment locators. You and Alan, and we did a couple trainings, and we were talking about that a couple weeks ago. And our first meeting, we met at Biaggi's there in Centera, and sat down and got to know each other. And Keith, I got to tell you, you were instrumental in me and my business, so I will forever be in debt to you. When I started my business, Front Range Compliance, and I kind of met with Keith and told him what my vision was and what we wanted to do, Keith would call me about every 2 weeks, said, "Hey, you need some more customers," and he'd give me a list of 2 or 3 people to call, and I'd call them, and those people would tell me they were waiting for my phone call, and that started my client list. And I don't think I've ever been able to return the favor. Unfortunately, I work with a lot of companies that, either they're set in their ways or they just don't want to buy nice new trucks or something like that.
Yeah, that's all right.
I think of all the customers, I think I've sent you 1 or 2, but, I will forever be in debt for what you've done for me. So, well, thanks, Keith. And, man, I'm excited for this. So, again, I'm Ryan Byers. I'm the owner of Front Range Compliance and DOT University. And, kind of going back in my walk of life, I was raised out in western Colorado in a little place called Pea Green. If you're listening to this and you know where Pea Green is, make sure you give us a like or a thumbs up, or at least make that comment, because I'd love to hear from my former Pea Greeners out there. Pea Green is on western Colorado. It's about an hour south of Grand Junction, I guess would just be the safest say. It's kind of between Delta and Olathe. If you were going to draw a triangle with the point going out west, yeah, Pea Green was out there in the country.
What's that town out there that has that little resort? Gateway.
Gateway, yeah.
Where is it from Gateway?
It's further south.
Oh,
So,
it is?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you turn there at Whitewater on Highway 50, just outside Grand Junction there, and that'll take you out to Gateway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was a little bit further out in the
Okay.
country. It was about 20 to 30-minute drive to school every day. So, we didn't believe in carpool when I was growing up. We every person in our household had their own vehicle and drove out there. But I had I got the privilege of kind of growing up on about a 2,000 acre cattle ranch. So I would leave school and I'd leave my friends and I wouldn't see them until school started again. So I kind of grew up out in the country, and I ran around when I was real little with my BB gun, and kind of graduated to a 22 to a shotgun, and I rode horses and did ranch work, and ultimately I wanted to be a cowboy. That was kind of the whole goal. But I went to Olathe High School, the king of the Olathe sweet corn here in Colorado. They went to high school, and after high school, I went to college. I was going to study some ag business, so I went to Fort Lewis College. I did study, drinking 101, and I ended my college career a little bit short there.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I drank a lot. I figured out the places that and the right things to wear to make yourself look older, and would show up at the liquor stores. And I figured out all the liquor stores that would sell to you when you're 19 years old. That was like my goal in life. So I came home early from college, and I started had to get into the working community. Man, the only place that was hiring at that point was Russell Stover's, the chocolate factory out in Montrose, Colorado. I took a job there. I worked in the box factory. Those little 3-ounce boxes? I think you get 3 pieces of candy inside one of them boxes. Yeah, we'd make around 18,000 boxes in however long our shift was. And I don't know what the deal was, but the management at Russell Stover's, like when things would go wrong, because those machines were always breaking, and they would just rake me over the coals. Like I was like the scapegoat that fell for everything, and the other guys were out messing around, screwing around, doing all kinds of things, and they would come after me left and right. So I worked there for exactly 30 days. I went in there and I was working, and I walked out. I couldn't take it anymore. It was just kind of one of those things. The manager followed me to the parking lot and asked me why he didn't want me to leave, and I said, I'm not doing this. I'm this is not for me. And he says, well, we had big promises for you. We were going to make you a manager. I'm like, well, you didn't communicate any of that. And besides that, I've got to be bigger. My life has got to be bigger than Russell Stover's. And not beating on anybody at Russell Stover's, it was not the right walk of life for me. So it was good experience, but it's probably the only time, it is the only time I ever walked out of a job. So,
Well, and trust me, being a manager isn't all it's cracked up to be.
No, it was bad. Well, we'll save a TAFO for some Russell Stover stories a little bit later, because to this day I won't eat Russell Stovers. I see it and I just can't. I just can't. Not to beat on them. I'm sure they got a great product, but I just saw too many nasty things happen in that factory. So I left there and I started. I got a job with some buddies of mine that were logging, and man, when you're 19 years old, logging was the dream job. I got to live in the mountains. We all lived in a camper, and grew up there for the next 3 seasons. I logged and had a ton of fun. I think I was making $8 an hour, and I thought I was doing real good back then, But I mean, in the mid 90s, that was pretty good. Yeah, it wasn't real good, but it was better than nothing, And so we worked there. I learned a ton about trucking and transportation. One of the biggest things, biggest memories I ever remember from logging is all your heavy machinery's got to be moved in the middle of the night. Like it just made more sense back then, And they convinced us as the employees that, hey, it's better to move all your your extra wide and extra heavy loads in the middle of the night because there's less traffic, and that's how the DOT wants you to do it. So we believed them, and we did that. So I logged for 3 years. At the end of that time frame, I just, that was real hard. Where the industry was getting cracked down. People were chaining themselves to trees and across fenceways and stuff like that. There were several times we got to cut the fences and drive around the protesters that chain themselves to cattle guards and things like that.
Yeah, got to protect the owls.
You do. And the aspen trees, because we're hard on the wildlife, even though, well, we do a clear cut and all those trees would be down and the elk would be standing next to us while we're eating lunch, just eating those aspen leaves. The elk loved us up there. But that's another story. I went for First Police Academy out at the Delta Vocational Academy. Became a police officer. I got a job right out of work or out of the academy. It was at a small little town, Cedar Edge Police Department. Now, Cedar Edge is a little mountain town right up the side of the hill. They had 5 officers. My training officer and my FTO, right? He graduated the academy with me 2 weeks earlier. He just got hired 2 weeks before me, and he was my field training officer. Really, my training was all about, hey, this is how you talk on the radio. I didn't really get any real training, and I worked at Cedar Edge for 9 months. Well, the last night I worked there, well, the last night that I made my decision to leave was, I think in an hour I made 9 laps around the town, and I just was thinking to myself, I've got to be destined for more. I just had drive. I needed to have more to my life than what Cedar Edge had to offer me. I then just a short time later got hired as a patrol deputy for Delta County Sheriff's Department, and I really enjoyed that. I actually got some real training and got involved in some real life situations. Delta Sheriff's Department was a heck of a lot busier than Cedar Edge Police Department, where all we knew how to do was point our radar gun and write a ticket. We were those small town officers. You pull through our town speed, and we're going to write you a ticket. And some of the people were very, very deserving, but again, I had very lack of training on that. And I worked there for 3.5 years as sheriff's deputy, and I got to know the local troopers. In small rural towns like that, you work hand in hand with your troopers. It's not like the metropolitan areas. And made some really good friends with the troopers, so I'm proud to say I'm still very close with today. And they had convinced me to apply for the state patrol, and I did, and I got hired. And I'll never forget sitting in that 6-month-long training academy at the Colorado State Patrol when we started talking about trucking and permitting, and they started talking about hours of operation for oversized loads and stuff like that. And I was thinking, oh, we're supposed to move all that heavy machinery in the middle of the night, huh? That's when I truly discovered we were doing everything we could to avoid DOT. But again, good life lessons. I got hired by the patrol, and I got stationed in Cortez, Colorado. Technically, no. Let me rephrase that. I got stationed in Dove Creek. So now Dove Creek is a town where both city limit signs are on the same post. I mean, it is a small little town, and the patrol was very adamant that I needed to buy a house up there. And I figured out real fast why they wanted me to buy a house up there, because they knew if I bought a house, I was going to be stuck there for life. And I went up there and was looking at houses, and there's holes in the floors, holes in the ceilings and the walls. I mean, the nicest house was a shotgun shack at that particular moment, and I just couldn't make it work. So they agreed to let me live about 45 minutes south in Cortez. It was only for 6 months. So I completed my FTO down in Cortez with some great troopers down there. I learned a ton. But in the middle of my field training, a position opened up in Delta, back in my old stomping ground, and I put in for the transfer. And once I completed my FTO, they let me know. And within about the next 30 days, I was shipped out and up in Delta. So
what does FTO mean?
Field training field training. Yeah, that's anytime you're fresh or a rookie, before you get released, you got to go do your field training with an FTO, which is a field training officer. So, and so I went up to Delta Montrose area, became a trooper there, and I got interested in trucks. Now, when I was a trooper and was working the road chasing taillights, I got interested in trucks back then. I didn't want anything to do with safety. That was the last thing on my mind. I had convinced my captain in Montrose to put me through a level 1 inspection school because I wanted to find super loads of dope. When I was working nights, I was on DUI patrol. I was doing everything I could to get DUIs. If I played my card right, I could pull down 3 DUIs in a shift. If when I was working in days, I was doing commercial vehicle enforcement. But again, my goal was to find that super load of dope, and I did find some drugs, but I never got to call the chief and say, "Hey, the war on drugs is over," because I got them all right here. So I got interested in trucks, and I made a big impact out in Western Colorado. And from there, they offered me a promotion to move to Denver, and so I sold my 80 acres that I had attached to my family's ranch. The ranch is kind of starting to dissolve. The old timers were going, and none of the youngins wanted anything to do with it besides myself. So they had kind of carved me out 80 acres, and I sold that to move to a subdivision in the middle of Arvada up here in the metro area. And if you're from outside Denver, everything from about Colorado Springs to the state line of Cheyenne, that's all considered Denver. I remember as a kid, we'd
Pretty much.
come over the Eastern Slope, and everybody over there say, "Oh, you're heading to the Denver, huh?" And it wasn't Denver itself; the whole area was Denver. So yeah, I came up here and I promoted into motor carrier safety, and that was MixApp, and I did inspections there. My first year I did roadsides. My second year I moved into compliance investigations, and by year three I became a trainer and was training within the state, and then by the end of year three I became a federal trainer for the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and the National Training Center, where ultimately I became a master instructor. And then in CSA, when that thing hit, well, you want to talk about a TAFO, man, CSA, boy, that turned the industry on its head. I just saw the impact that was happening and decided to pull the plug on my career at the State Patrol and start my business, Front Range Compliance Services.
CSA, that's all the scoring for trucking companies and everything. Is that right?
Yes. So CSA is it started. It was originally founded as CSA 2010, and that was when the FMCSA decided to flip the script and say, hey, we're going to look at violations in a different light. And we're going to keep score on both companies and on drivers. And so the reason it flipped the script is because when CSA hit in 2010, over the next 2 years, it got up to 67%. 67% of the companies that failed a compliance investigation, they were going completely out of business because they couldn't meet CSA. The A stands for accountability. So it's compliance, safety, and accountability. And they could not, trucking companies were just struggling to meet that accountability side. And I won't lie, I was arrogant enough to think that when I left the State Patrol, I knew everything there was to know. And I started Front Range Compliance. Little did I know my education was really just beginning at that particular point. So I started Front Range Compliance Services, and I ended up moving up north out of the Denver metro area, and moved up north to the little town of Johnstown. I live in Windsor now. I met Holly about 3 or 4 years ago, and we got married, and we're living in Windsor now. And Front Range for the last 13 years. I've been working with Front Range Compliance, and I got a small team that works with me, and we're focusing on transportation safety, working with our clients, and drug and alcohol, and the works when it comes into it. But if I was going to tell you my walk of life, that's kind of it. But it all began in a little community called Pea Green. So yes, yeah. So anyway, it's been fun times. I really enjoy working with this transportation industry. I mean, to be honest, we wouldn't have anything that we have today without the ladies and gentlemen that we have in this trucking community and that type of
Absolutely.
thing. So Keith, I got to say, I mean, you were the one that came up with this name. We sat down and we talked. I think I sent you a list of probably 60 different possibilities, and gosh, I don't know how many safety meetings and beers that we drank. I should say old fashions over at the greenhouse that we drank and trying to come up with some names. And one day you just you had a few names and you threw this one out, and I think both of us just kind of paused and took a deep breath and said, "That's it." So truck around and find out. How'd you come up with that?
We had pages and pages of names, and I just happened to write that. I think I saw the other derivative of this, and I was like, well, that kind of rhymes with truck.
It does.
And I wrote it down, and I was like, I kind of like that, and kept writing down names. And like I said, I bet I've got 3 or 4 pages of legal pads of just names, 2, 3, 4 columns a page,
Oh, yeah.
I highlighted that one, and I thought, I'm just going to sit on it, and I just keep coming back to it. Coming back to it. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll share this one with you and see if you like it.
You threw that one down on paper, and you gave me a few first that were like, well, I like this one, I like this one. Then you told me that, and I wrote it down. I started to write down the next one, and I just stopped, and I just went back to that, and I'm like, that's it. That's it. Truck around and find out. Yeah. TAFO. So Keith, what does it mean? Like, what does TAFO mean to you?
To me, this isn't going to be a podcast of just, like you see on YouTube, just bad things happening to truckers or idiot trucker moves or, anything like that. That's not what this is going to be. We'll have some of that. We'll have some things that we all look around and say, hey, what was he thinking? But this is good stuff too. It's coming from a safety and compliance standpoint. I've got stuff coming from Peterbilt. We've got stuff coming from Cummins. We'll just bring it all out here. And plus, if you guys have anything specific you want to talk about, just send us a comment and let us know what you want to talk about.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I'm not the expert on Peterbilts or even trucks, but I know who to call.
Yeah.
And we can get them on here. We'll make the phone calls. And if you guys want to see certain people on here, we'll get them on here. Let's get them, pick their brains.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree completely with you. I see the truck around and find out in so many different ways, because in this industry I've seen so much good, I've seen bad, and of course we see the ugly. I mean, people are entertained by the ugly for sure, but I think truck around find out trucking can change the life of an individual, whether they're looking for a career. There's always going to be a career opportunity. There's always jobs in trucking, and in society today, I think the truckers are vilified so much, just simply because you get out there on the highway and you see one knucklehead do things, and that they get obviously stereotyped with all trucking and transportation. And I know when I was a trooper, there was times I'd pull somebody over, and instead of taking responsibility for their violations, they say something asinine like, "Hey, what are you going to do to get these trucks off the road? There's too many trucks on the road." And it's just like, you're an idiot,
Well, yeah, I remember when Hillary was running, she made a speech about, we're going to get these trucks off the road. And even the president of ATA out of DC was like, when did we become the bad guys?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're not.
So I see so much good. I mean, overall, if we were going to talk about some of the most safe drivers out there on the road, it is our trucking community.
Absolutely.
I mean, they are true professionals that are out there, and we don't give them the thanks that are due. But definitely, I think with how I envision us going with this podcast is we want to talk about the good, the bad, and of course we'll bring up some of the ugly, here and there, and just because they're for entertaining. Or I think when we bring up the ugly, it's not to make fun of or that kind of thing. I think it's for us to learn from it. I mean, I can think of incident after incident that I use through my teachings, and I get a room full of drivers, because I love to hear what drivers have to say about this. I mean, they are the foremost experts when it comes to controlling that vehicle. So I like to, kind of lay out this my thoughts and then hear what they have to say, and they help curve my opinion of a lot of situations, because they live it, they each and every day, and that type of thing. So, if we do accentuate on an ugly situation, I think it's just so we can kind of bring that forward with that type of thing. So I overall, I think that it's going to be a super fun topic, and we're going to have a lot to do with this. I think in planning, talk about bringing in some guests even, and kind of getting that whole thing rocking and rolling. And I'm super, super excited to do that with you. So anything else that comes to mind with the name and the brand?
No, we'll expand on it, and I'm sure we're going to head in a direction, and I'm sure it's going to change.
Yeah.
Based on what the audience wants to hear.
Right.
And
Sounds good. Well, speaking of brands, just before we started, we had a little conversation. I think we should let the audience and everybody know that you are a Minnesota Vikings fan. So we need to
talk slow.
We need to make sure that we get that out there. Of course, I'm a Denver Broncos fan. I think that conversation started. I looked at Keith and asked him if he watched the Broncos. He just gave me a dead stare and said, "No, no, not going to watch the Broncos." Talk about good, bad, and ugly. I mean, the good was they won, but man, the game was pretty ugly. They definitely game one of the season, because they were really struggling, I think, on some connections there. But anyways, so
Vikings are tonight, first Monday night football.
First Monday night football game.
Playing the Bears.
Playing the Bears. Yeah. Oh man, the Bears. Well, you think they're going to have a season this year?
We'll see.
We'll see. Well,
they got a great defense, great offense, but they got a rookie quarterback, the second year rookie.
Oh man, yeah, for
McCarthy.
Sure.
So we'll see.
Nowhere but forward, right?
Right.
That's all we got to look.
We're 0-4 in Super Bowls, so
yeah. Perfect.
I just want one before I die. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't care if we get 4, 5, 6. I don't care. I just want one.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So Keith, tell me, you got a YouTube channel. What?
I
Tell me
do.
about that.
It started Rocky Mountain Peterbilts on YouTube back in 2017. And for about the first 3 years, not much happened. Um, but I just kept putting up content. And then I had a 579 with a 605 Cummins 2050 torque, 18 speed, legendary gray and legendary red, the big 80-inch sleeper and black wheels. And that thing took off. I think it's got 850,000 views or something like that. Um, and then everything took off on that channel at that time. And what I do for that is I just put on new Peterbilts. Most of them are available for sale, but since COVID and everything and the market tightening up and now nobody's carrying inventory, most of the stuff I put on there is already sold, but we're trying to get back to inventory that I can put on there sold. But it's just Rocky Mountain Peterbilts on YouTube, and we just do walkarounds on new, very few used, but mostly new trucks.
Your videos are real fun. I enjoy watching them. Every once in a while, I'll throw a comment on there. Definitely try to like all that I see, just to kind of give you that extra little bump. I think your channel has done absolutely phenomenal. And I the thing that is significant about your channel, I think, is how you do it. You know, you just go for it. You pull out your phone. I think I tried to talk you into an upgrading your camera, and you tried that and said nope. You just kind of went back to your phone.
Yeah,
So
I've had more comments on people saying they just like it raw.
fresh and raw.
Yeah, if I make a mistake, I just go back. I don't edit them. I don't put any music on them. Just talk about the trucks, and I think just shy of 40,000 subscribers right now,
Yeah, well,
which is pretty amazing.
yeah. Not only that, but there's some beautiful trucks that you go in and you talk about them, and you do that walk around in the cab, walk around, and the trucking community, of course, especially the followers and the lovers of Peterbilts or the lovers of trucking.
Right.
I think they love it because they get to learn, like when we talk about a lot of the different things that are in that truck and all the equipment. I've learned a lot because there's a lot of things watching your videos that I didn't quite know or understand about
Sure.
that
And
truck.
I think the thing that surprises me the most is I get comments not just from the US,
Mm.
but North America. And what really shocks me is we get comments from New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Norway, Sweden, Germany.
Right?
I mean, it's in England. It's just amazing how many people. And it's very interesting when I get to going back and forth via email with these guys, how different trucking is in these countries compared to us here in the
Without
U.S.
doubt.
So there's a lot of things different. A lot of things are the same.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
for this podcast, we want to include those guys overseas, just would love to hear from you.
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
give all us guys here in the States a different perspective.
Well, and it's fascinating. And so you heard from somebody, down. Where all did you say you were down in? Not Australia, but New Zealand.
New
You
Zealand.
heard- what was that about? I think you were telling me about it the other day, and I just found it totally fascinating.
It was just fascinating that a police officer down in New Zealand, on the South Island, Oamaru was the name of the town, and he happened to be walking on the beach one day. Huge. He said it's like a 10, 12-mile stretch of beach at low tide. There were only 4 couples on the whole beach that he could physically see. Walked by one couple, realized they're not from New Zealand, could tell from their accent they're from the States, and gets to talking to this guy. And this guy and I worked together at John Deere.
Oh, small world, huh?
Yeah,
Small world.
it just, and so when this guy gets back to the States, he texts me. He's like, I literally go around the world, halfway around the world, other hemisphere, and he said, I run into somebody that knows you.
Yeah.
So it's amazing the reach of the YouTube channel. Hopefully this podcast will turn into the same thing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we do want to hear from the guys
Yeah, absolutely.
that aren't in the States, just to give us a different perspective.
Yeah. Well, it's your podcast has just really done wonderful things and drove traffic. I think during COVID, I remember you and I talking, and at that point you had people just you could sell trucks, you could move trucks, but at that time you couldn't get any trucks.
Couldn't get 'em.
And now here we are. You got trucks that you can get and you
Yeah.
can sell, but we're missing the other end of it. We're missing
Yes.
the buyers. So
Yeah.
that's it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't type situation. I think I know I'm for one. I'm hoping that 6 to 9 months for sure that we get through this. I know
Yeah, I
when I
hope
say
so.
that to you, you raise your eyebrows and say, whew, that's a 6 to 9 months is a long time, but
It is.
I think the winds of change are blowing. Something's got to happen, and maybe we'll get some stability within this
Yeah, a
industry.
correction
and
needed to be made. So
kind of
gonna be
start
painful.
moving in that direction. So we'll see. It's real interesting times. So yeah, for sure. But yeah, check out that YouTube channel, Rocky Mountain Peterbilts, with Keith. He's got some great videos on there and that type of thing. So yeah, absolutely. And our YouTube channel, it's not nearly got the traffic as much as yours. I would say that people don't just come to our channel for entertainment. It's more about the safety topics and some things like that and updates. And we did a lot of that during COVID, and then we got really busy after COVID, so we haven't really kept up with keeping up with our YouTube. We were growing dotuniversity.org at that point, and trying to get our training portal worked up, trying to compete with some of the big players in this industry. Just put forth good quality training through DOT University, trying to get that out there. So I know part of this, we want to drive traffic to each of our businesses and that kind of thing, but we don't want to necessarily make this podcast all about our businesses. We want to be focused in this industry. So since we're doing episode 1, it's kind of our time just to kind of visit and talk about what we're doing in the industry and that type of thing. So yeah.
And I will say the best part about selling trucks over the years has been the people.
Oh,
totally,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. That this
Same as
entire
yours, I'm
industry.
sure.
Yeah, this entire industry is just made up of just some absolute rock stars, some great individuals on the safety side, of the drivers, the community, that kind of thing. We in my line of work, we deal with a lot of very interesting, personalities for sure, because we get the phone calls from people they're in trouble right now, and they want my company, Front Range Compliance. They want us to come in and apply the Band-Aids. They want us to stop the bleeding. And we'll get in there and do the work, and then they're like, "Okay, we made it through the audit. Now let's go ahead and we're not going to utilize you anymore." And we've got, of course, we deal with those that side of the community, but we also deal with some really great companies that come to us and say, "Hey, you know what? We want to fix our problem. We need to correct the culture, and bring in a culture of safety to really implement that change. When you have to change a culture and you have to change the ideas of everybody from the bottom all the way to the top, it takes a lot of work and it takes a big commitment. And I think in this industry, a lot of bad habits get started by drivers, but I think they get enabled by upper level management. I think sometimes management gets so focused on the business aspect that sometimes they steer a little bit or turn their head to some of the safety issues, and that's the biggest thing that we combat. But absolutely some great people, the professionals, the people that I've met since I left the State Patrol and started Front Range Compliance Services. There are so many experts in the field, and once upon a time when I was all of a sudden deemed an expert in the field, I was like, well, all I did was surround myself with the experts in the industry, to kind of get to that point. There's by far people in this industry that are way smarter than me. It takes a lot of work to really know these rules, these regulations, but to manage this or drive that truck, it takes a lot of work also. So it's kind of a big cohesive ball, and we all have to work together, and I think that starts with you, and that type of thing. I think the one of the biggest things I think that always impressed me about you, Keith, was just your approach to sales. I don't think anybody just can say, "Hey, I know a salesman, truck sales or car sales or whatever else, out there that I just trust." And one of your philosophies is just to work with people. And I think you told me that when I started my business.
Solve problems.
Provide a service, and the people will come to you. And the one thing that I noticed about you with your sales is, you're there for the community. Somebody can call you up if they need just some advice, need some help, need something figured
Sure.
out, and whether you're making a sale or not, you give them the time. And I think that's just a very respectable
No, thank you.
situation. So yeah,
Appreciate
fantastic.
that. And
So with that, we want to. One of our goals is that for every podcast, we want to come in and introduce our very own TAFO, a truck around and find out situation. And talk about that, and probably for entertainment purposes, we'll focus on some of the other stuff, so we can the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we'll probably accentuate on some bad here and there in this area, just so we can get a little entertainment, a chuckle, but also accentuate the situation, so we can bring light to it. And today, the TAFO that I'm bringing today is something that I discovered in an audit. I was doing a little internal audit on a company up here in northern Colorado. And I was working with this company, and we're in the maintenance portion of the audit, and they're using this the software for the drivers when they do their pre-trip, and basically, so when a driver goes out, he jumps in his truck, he logs on duty, and then he clicks it in his ELD. The driver clicks that he's starting his pre-trip. Well, that thing, that the timer starts. So with these new ELDs, you can go through, you can track the time, and drivers, they do their pre-trip in a minute, and you're like, yeah, that's not right. And I think probably, my experience tells me a lot of drivers probably did their pre-trip, jumped in, logged in, and then didn't sit there for 10, 15 minutes and hit the button again. They probably already did their pre-trip. But I think even people in the industry, I think a lot of people would tell me, yes, drivers, they're a lot that are really good at their pre-trip, and there's a lot that kind of forego that whole pre-trip, right? So one of the new softwares that they have come up with is you can take your ELD device and you can take pictures around the truck. That way you just show that you're walking around, taking time to do that, just to help encourage these drivers to take pictures around their truck. And it never seems, or how should I say this? It always seems that there is somebody out there that's going to figure out a way to cheat this little system. So I brought forth today one of these pictures, and we'll get these pictures up on once up on the the site for it's going to be TAFOUSA.com. We're going to get these images up there so you can check them out, and we'll put some other information up there as we're going through. But this driver, I got a driver who did his walk around inspection. And so as I'm doing the audit, I opened it up. I'm looking at the drivers that I selected, and I'm just going through a brief period of time. And this particular driver, he took his pictures, but you can see all four pictures. It's the driver's side, front, passenger side, and back. So the driver's supposed to go through and take their pictures as they're walking around. And so I was just, I like looking at the pictures. I'm doing the audit, and I happened to glance through and look at these pictures, and Keith, you just kind of grabbed that and tell me what you're seeing there.
it's the same picture
Yeah.
out the driver's side door.
Yeah, all four pictures. The driver just sitting in that driver's seat.
Well, that's
and,
more efficient.
He at least he's got his mirror in there. I would say, we got we can see that lower portion of the mirror is intact. But yeah, all four pictures. The driver didn't even get out of the truck. He just kind of took the four pictures and clicked on. I asked the company. I brought this up to the company. I asked them. I said, "Well, have you ever taken time just to review the pictures, just to see what your drivers are taking out?" And he just kind of gave me that sheepish grin and said, "No, I just never even thought about it. I didn't think a driver would do this."
Well, trust but verify.
Trust but verify, exactly. Yeah. We did go back and take a peek at this driver, and he had apparently created a little bit of a habit of taking pictures just out the driver's door. And this company, be fair to this company, they do have some really nice equipment. Their trucks are good. Their trailers, they're one of those companies got more trailers than they do trucks, but those trailers are the bane of every DOT existence. I mean, they're the ones that are going to be less maintenance. They're not getting service the same amount of time as the trucks. So the drivers have got to pay extra close attention, but drivers are our first line of defense to safety out here, right? They
are, but they're like salesmen. They always take the path of least resistance.
Exactly. But we got to depend on those drivers to do their part. It's always been interesting to me. If I got a room full of drivers, they'll they point the finger at the maintenance technicians. I get a room full of maintenance technicians, and they point
Point
the
'em at the
fingers at the
drivers.
driver. And in all reality, we got to come together. We got to run that program like one cohesive ball, and we got to work together to get it done. But drivers, when you're doing your pre-trip, I want you to think about big picture, like as you're driving down the highway and you see a billboard, okay, and there's millions of them along the path that you're taking, and you're going to see faces on those billboards, and it never fails. Like, who are the faces that we're looking at? Keith, you want to take a we didn't prep for this. I'm just kind of winging it and looking at you.
Well, what's his name?
There?
The big attorney out of Denver?
Oh, man, Super Bowl commercial last year even. I mean, old Frankie boy,
Frank
Azar.
Azar.
When I'm teaching, I like to say, what would Frank do? That's kind of I kind of coined that term. What would Frank do? Well, Frank's going to sue you. That's his whole purpose, right? His whole purpose in life. And Frank, if you are involved, like if you're trucking, I would say a crash, I wouldn't say it's inevitable, but it could happen at any time, right? I mean, that can be each and every one of us. Whether I'm driving home from work or you're driving a big old load down the road.
Even if it's not their fault,
yeah.
if you're involved in it and somebody else caused it, a smaller vehicle, SUV, whatever, causes it.
Oh, 100%.
They're still going to go after the trucking company.
Absolutely. And I got a great story. I'm going to save it for another time, but I got a story that happened on a truck that the driver, it wasn't his fault. It was a huge fatality crash, and that ended up in a $2.5 million lawsuit against that driver. And they went after that driver, for his negligence. And, this situation here, just looking at this driver, he's driving a beautiful truck. His trailer was probably pretty good shape. But if that was the day, and let's say he got into that crash with serious bodily injury or a fatality, even if it was somebody that just happened to cut him off, which if you're driving, that stuff happens all the time. You get out there, and when they start investigating you and they find this picture that shows that you sat in your driver's seat and took 4 pictures of the outside, they're going to exploit that, and they're going to just use that to say, hey, you know what? You're not a professional. You are, you are reckless out here. You're recklessly endangering lives. If you're taking this kind of shortcut, what other shortcuts are you taking? And basically, Frank, he starts just tacking in other zeros at the end of that. But the biggest part of this is this vicarious liability part, right? Like we're talking vicarious liability. That's like the shotgun blast of the lawsuit where they just kind of reach out and try to snag anybody and everybody they possibly can in that sweep. And right now, with looking at this, they're going to grab this driver. They're going to pull that driver into that lawsuit because they're going to be able to show that he was negligent, not operating within the policy of the company. He's no longer operating in good faith. This driver took an action that was intentional and negligent, and they're going to name this driver personally. So, if you cherish your possessions, all this stuff that you've worked hard for, your home, your family, your savings accounts, your retirements, they're going to take anything and everything they can from you in a lawsuit like this. And it's going to be pretty hard for a driver, like in this situation where we got all 4 of these pictures, it's going to be pretty hard to argue that, you weren't negligent or being negligent in that day. And that lawsuit could definitely pick you up. You could lose everything. So
yeah, the pictures say it all.
It really does. And so my TAFO of the day is going to be just a reminder to drivers out there, look, man, don't be negligent. Just, do your job, be consistent in your day-to-day, do that walk around, complete it the same way every time. When you find a violation, take a minute and jot it down. Okay. Don't be the guy that's just calling the shop saying, hey, I got to get this fixed. I got to get this fixed. Put yourself in the mechanic's shoes. He's got 50 to 100 trucks leaving that morning. He's already received 50 to 100 phone calls of stuff he's got to work on, and he doesn't have any of them jotted down. You're going to make that call. He's going to remember that for about 2 seconds after you hang up and his phone rings the second time. So take a minute, follow the process, so you can get that truck and, be a little bit safer out there on the roadway, that type of thing. But definitely don't take a step to show yourself as negligent, that kind of thing. But anyway, so that's my TAFO. Truck around and find out for the day. Keith, you have anything you want to share?
No, I just as we move forward with this, I'm sure it will morph and change into things that you guys want to talk about. We will also obviously not just be doing just the podcast, but we'll have it on YouTube. We've got Luke here, Ryan's son. He's our technical guru. So
Yep, the
With that,
red bearded wonder over here. We got Mr. Luke. Luke works for me. He does a lot of inspections. He's also does our editing and he manages the website in DOT University. So if you're booking classes through dotuniversity.org, that's going to be hitting up Mr. Luke, and he'll be sending out his progress reports. We got more and more companies that are coming to us to do the training, hooking it up through. I'm probably going to get the initials wrong because I am not tech savvy with a lot of this stuff, but the LMS, where companies can kind of hook up and that we can track when the drivers are doing their trainings and some stuff like that. And the biggest thing when it comes to training is failure to train is negligence in itself. The DOT regulations say that you're required to train all your drivers in all applicable regulations. So that a lot of companies have the philosophy, well, these drivers already have training, and it is 100% up to you to continue your training. So yeah, if you reach out to us, you'll probably be looking out for Luke. And I think the other big thing is one of our company policies is we keep our doors open. So if you do have questions, you got comments, you can reach out to us at info@Front Range Compliance. You have that, and yeah, we are going to be, eventually we're going to be shooting these and getting the video up. So we'll have both. Our podcast and our YouTube channel. And of course, we'll probably link up with Rocky Mountain Peterbilts and DOT University for our backdoor channels, just, to try to drive a little bit of traffic. But again, if you're looking for trucks, you got Mr. Keith Couch over there at Rush Truck Centers at Rocky Mountain Peterbilts. And if you need some help with safety, you've got us over at Front Range Compliance Services. It's just frontrangecompliance.com. You can find our information. And with that, I think close this with a good tribute to the trucking industry, and a way to say, hey, thank you. I think truck drivers themselves, they don't hear that enough. I think it's pretty common for us to walk up to service members and thank them. It's pretty common to walk up to first responders and thank them for their service. And it's, as a former first responder, I can tell you that's always appreciated. But when's the last time you thanked a trucker? And I try to anytime I've got a group of them or after a class, I just try to thank them for their work, because I understand, they are out there on this traffic and this sea of asphalt, and they just they're just constantly battling with the cars that don't like them. If you turn on your turn signal, all 12 cars behind you want to try to pass you instead of giving you the space to come over and that kind of thing. And they put up with a lot of crap out there on the roadway. So I want to say first off, thank you to our trucking community. And it's not just the over-the-road truckers that are, delivering all of our dry goods, our home goods, and everything else. It's the construction companies that are hauling machinery, the vocational companies, those businesses from landscapers all the way up to construction. Thank you for what you do. You keep our society moving forward, and I, for one, definitely appreciate you and look forward to.
And this podcast and everything we do isn't just heavy-duty guys. We're talking about the medium-duty guys, too.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of play in the middle. That they're not really trucking companies, but they use trucks to get their job done.
I would say that's probably 98% of my whole business. I actually don't work with a lot of over-the-road trucking companies per se, because they go through and they hire their own safety teams and stuff like that. With the over-the-road companies, we mostly just audit them, and they hire us to come in, and I'll go in and do an audit. It's better to have me look at it and make recommendations than have the DOT show up and find out what the issues, and all of a sudden you got a bad safety rating. So this industry, the vocational side of this, y'all are just absolute rock stars. But we could all be a little bit better working together, gain that knowledge, and hopefully we can shed some light on some of these topics while also kind of talking about our special interests and just little projects and stuff like that along the way. Hopefully we can have a little bit of fun with this. But with that, Keith, is there anything else you want to throw in there?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. We're going to call this a wrap for episode 1. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on our next podcast.